Chapter 13. The Cry of Sodom. The story of the flood is relatively easy to piece together once we remove the darkened veil of human misunderstanding of God's character. The effect on the earth of Cain killing Abel opens to us the ability to see how the continual evil of men could cause a worldwide flood. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah is more complex to unravel. Our confidence in our quest to see God as non-violent like His Son can easily be shattered by taking on the story of the fire from heaven that turned the 5 cities on the plain to ash. We begin this story with Abraham concerned that God might destroy the righteous with the wicked. So the Lord told Abraham, "I have heard a great outcry from Sodom and Gomorrah because their sin is so flagrant. I'm going down to see if their actions are as wicked as I have heard. If not, I want to know." The other men turned and headed towards Sodom, but the Lord remained with Abraham. Abraham approached him and said, "Will you sweep away both the righteous and the wicked? Suppose you find 50 righteous people living there in the city. Will you still sweep it away and not spare it for their sakes? Surely you wouldn't do such a thing, destroying the righteous along with the wicked. Why, you would be treating the righteous and the wicked exactly the same. Surely you wouldn't do that. Should not the judge of all the earth do what is right?" Genesis 18:20-25. God says He won't destroy the city if there are 50 righteous in it. Abraham, not wanting to see the city destroyed, tries to bring this number lower. Abraham is having an internal struggle between his perception of justice and the lives of the righteous in the city. What is curious in this story is that Abraham stops pleading for the righteous at 10 people. Finally, Abraham said, "Lord, please don't be angry with me if I speak one more time. Suppose only 10 are found there." And the Lord replied, "Then I will not destroy it for the sake of the 10. When the Lord had finished his conversation with Abraham, he went on his way, and Abraham returned to his tent. Genesis 18:32-33. If Abraham believed that it was not just to slay the righteous with the wicked, then why did he not go right to the point of asking for one person? Did Abraham believe that there were more than 10 righteous people in Sodom on account of the fact that Lot was there with his family? Maybe he thought for sure there would be 10 of Lot's family who could prevent the catastrophe. But the reality of stopping at 10 people is that Abraham reveals that he would be willing to sacrifice 9 righteous people for the satisfaction of divine justice. It is as if he thought, if there are less than 10 righteous people, that is so little that it makes sense the city must be destroyed. If we look into the face of Jesus, we see something different. If a man has 100 sheep and one of them gets lost, what will he do? Won't he leave the 99 others in the wilderness and go to search for the one that is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he will joyfully carry it home on his shoulders. Luke 15:4-5. And Peter says, "The Lord isn't really slow about his promise, as some people think. No, he is being patient for your sake. He does not want anyone to be destroyed, but wants everyone to repent." 2 Peter 3:9. Is Abraham projecting onto God the human trait of being willing to kill the righteous with the wicked in capping God's mercy at 10 righteous people? This brings us to the question of what was happening in Sodom and the other cities on the plain. God spoke to Abraham of a cry in Sodom. Once again, notice two different translations on this. So the Lord told Abraham, I have heard a great outcry from Sodom and Gomorrah because their sin is so flagrant. Genesis 18:20, NLT. Then the Lord said, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great and their sin so grievous. Genesis 18:20, NIV. From where did this cry come from? Was there a cry coming from Sodom? Or was there a cry being made against Sodom? If the cry is made against Sodom, it would be by those outside demanding justice against the cities on the plain. If the cry is coming from Sodom, then it is those inside who are bewailing the natural consequences of the sins committed in the city. One version views the text through a lens of imposed justice upon sin, while the other views the text through a lens of the natural effect of sin. How do you read? If we read it through the person of the character of Jesus on earth, would it make a difference? Would it suggest natural consequences rather than imposed destruction? It is interesting to note that the word for cry in Hebrew carries the meaning to shriek. While it is possible that people might shriek for others to be punished, it is more likely the shriek of those suffering from the crimes committed in Sodom. It is also interesting to note that although the Bible uses a different Hebrew word to describe the sound of Abel's blood crying from the ground, it also carries the meaning to shriek. What sins were being committed in Sodom that beckoned destruction for it? The prophet gives us the following. So Abram settled in the land of Canaan, and Lot moved his tents to a place near Sodom, and settled among the cities of the plain. But the people of this area were extremely wicked, and constantly sinned against the Lord. Genesis 13:12-13. Sodom's sins were pride, gluttony, and laziness, while the poor and needy suffered outside her door. Ezekiel 16:49. But now I see that the prophets of Jerusalem are even worse. They commit adultery and love dishonesty. They encourage those who are doing evil so that no one turns away from their sins. These prophets are as wicked as the people of Sodom and Gomorrah once were. Jeremiah 23:14. Pride, gluttony, and laziness are a sure path to adultery and dishonesty. These selfish sins harden the heart, resulting in the poor being forgotten. Excess eating clouds the mind and prepares the heart for sexual excess. Sexual excess in the form of adultery nearly always brings her sister deception with her to cover her evil deeds. Jesus tracks this path from eating and drinking to sexual excess in the stories of the flood and Sodom in this way. In those days, the people enjoyed banquets and parties and weddings right up to the time Noah entered his boat, and the flood came and destroyed them all. And the world will be as it was in the days of Lot. People went about their daily business, eating and drinking, buying and selling, farming and building, until the morning Lot left Sodom. Then fire and burning sulfur rained down from heaven and destroyed them all. Luke 17:27-29. Jesus makes the statement that they married wives. What is wrong with marrying a wife? Nothing, unless one man is marrying multiple wives, having them all together, or discarding the previous ones along the way. It is interesting to note that the first man recorded to have taken 2 wives at one time was the second recorded murderer in the Bible. One day Lamech said to his wives, "Ada and Zillah, hear my voice. Listen to me, you wives of Lamech. I have killed a man who attacked me, a young man who wounded me. If someone who kills Cain is punished 7 times, then the one who kills me will be punished 77 times." Genesis 4:23-24. I indicated in chapter 2 that the intimacy I found in marriage to my wife was a key factor which led me to seek for the truth of my father's character. It should be evident that restful intimacy can never be found where a woman is contending with another woman for the affections of her husband. We see the jealousies that developed amongst the wives of Jacob, and what sorrow this brought to his home. Our Father in heaven only has one begotten Son, and He alone dwells in the bosom of the Father. John 1:18. This intimacy is reflected in the husband and wife relationship, not sexually, but in terms of closeness and intimacy. When a third party enters the marriage, loyalty is divided, and rest is replaced with a race of who will be the most favored. This hardens the heart, as it did in the case of Lamech, making it easier for him to kill another man. The fertility of the plain of Sodom attracted Lot and was the reason he settled there. Such fertility made food easy to grow and thus facilitated more time for pleasure. The abundance of food, combined with more time for leisure, led the heart to sexual excess. The marriage union was degraded, and the pursuit for worldly ecstasy became the god of many in Sodom. When true love for a spouse is replaced with the pursuit of self-pleasure, novelty in sexual activity will force itself upon those abandoning the wife of their youth. Normal sexual activity delivers the pleasure hormone dopamine. Sexual activity outside of the commandments of God brings adrenaline on top of dopamine due to the consciousness of evil in the heart. The heart beats faster in the face of the cry of God into the hearts of those fleeing His commandments. Strangely, the result is a heightened sexual experience in the flesh for a short time until the heart hardens to the voice of God, luring the sinner deeper into sin to bring more adrenaline with dopamine to achieve the same experience as before. It also explains the growing market for adrenochrome amongst the wicked of these last days. In this context, it makes perfect sense that the men of Sodom wanted to sleep with the 2 visitors to Sodom that fateful night. That evening, the 2 angels came to the entrance of the city of Sodom. Lot was sitting there, and when he saw them, he stood up to meet them. Then he welcomed them and bowed with his face to the ground. "My lords," he said, "come to my home to wash your feet and be my guests for the night. You may then get up early in the morning and be on your way." "Oh no," they replied, "we'll just spend the night out here in the city square." But Lot insisted, so at last they went home with him. Lot prepared a feast for them, complete with fresh bread made without yeast, and they ate. But before they retired for the night, all the men of Sodom, young and old, came from all over the city and surrounded the house. They shouted to Lot, "Where are the men who came to spend the night with you? Bring them out to us so we can have sex with them." Genesis 19, 1-5. What an astonishing scene! Not a few, not some, but all the men of Sodom came to rape the 2 visitors to their city. The urgent need for some novel dopamine adrenaline fix drove all the men of the city to these 2 distinctly unfamiliar visitors. They sought some form of high to replace that which they had lost, a relationship with God, and the blissful intimacy that comes from staying married to one person in a spirit of selfless love. The Apostle Paul attributes to the sin of sexual excess every other form of wickedness. And the men, instead of having normal sexual relations with women, burned with lust for each other. Men did shameful things with other men, and as a result of this sin, they suffered within themselves the penalty they deserved. Since they thought it foolish to acknowledge God, He abandoned them to their foolish thinking and let them do things that should never be done. Their lives became full of every kind of wickedness, sin, greed, hate, envy, murder, quarreling, deception, malicious behavior, and gossip. They are backstabbers, haters of God, insolent, proud, and boastful. They invent new ways of sinning, and they disobey their parents. They refuse to understand, break their promises, are heartless, and have no mercy. Romans 1:27-31. When men burn in their lust for one another, we have evidence of the seeking for novelty and adrenaline that must come when breaking God's commandments. Unbelievable sorrow is created when men, in trying to ease their restlessness, desire sex with young children, stamping into the children the idea that such things are normal sexual behavior, confusing their senses while stealing from them the sweetness and innocence of virgin love between a man and a woman that lasts for life. Worse is when parents do it to their own children. Such corruption of pure familial love haunts households forever. The men of Sodom had become so perverse, so hardened in their pursuit of pleasure, that they lost all respect for the commandments of God, as well as the sacredness of marriage and life itself. Like the people before the flood, their thoughts were only evil continually. It is clear what God meant when He could hear a cry in Sodom. The broken lives of children, having their innocence ripped from them by degraded men seeking a little adrenaline in their excited fear of breaking God's commandments, rose into the heavens like a shriek of despair, both from the perpetrators and the victims. They had tried to fill their lives with forbidden pleasures and found themselves wretched and empty. This sad reality proves the truth that rest can only be found in God. He is the God of all comfort, 2 Corinthians 1:3, and His commandments are the only place to find lasting peace, Psalm 119, 165. All those who hate God love death, Proverbs 8:36.